slides have been posted, although they're somewhat barren. We're starting our new unit called Animation and Functions. We get to started off the first 3 weeks with shapes that didn't really move, but we drew pictures. And now we're beginning to do more complicated behavior, starting to make them move around. And we'll need a couple tools to help us do that for those in Computer Programming A. You can look on the slides, and it refers to various lessons from code.org, and some of you have already done so and found that. And in my assignment prompt for you all, no, not that one, is assignment number 3. I don't know if I named it correctly. It's shape patterns, and it's very basic animation. Okay, notice in this example, it's a circle that moves and gets bigger. Notice the slight change in color too. You'll be using variables and if statements for you to accomplish that. And the first part of this week's lecture is talking about variables, how do we use those? And then the next part is how do if statements work? How do we get things to appear and reset? You can take a look and like copy and paste the starter code into CodePen and just play around and get some interesting things moving. Down here are some student examples from the 1, 2, 3 semesters I've taught this. They can be rather complex or they can be rather simple, like just circles, ellipses moving in and out is somewhat mesmerizing, okay? Beanos is not here. So we can pull up Beanos. Yeah, so if you can email me the link, I'll gladly show that. So Beanos is this reoccurring character that's the bean-shaped Thanos, right? I think that's his origin, so you may see some of that. So to get us started with this, we'll go through a couple slides that are already here. Girls Who Code is meeting today after school in not 3:32, but 3:34, and they meet Mondays this semester. Their first meeting is today. My slides aren't been updated, but I'm their sponsor. So do attend if this is interesting to you. Other kind of coding clubs I sponsored at one point or another. I think Dev Club meets Thursdays. Electrical Engineering Computer Science Club meets Thursdays in the Science Wing. Oh, well then. Okay. So variables, okay? That's a new idea. And there's 3 steps I want you to remember. You're going to see these 3 steps appear again and again, okay? Declare, initialize, and in some way or another, modify. So the first part, declaring, is telling the computer variables exist, right? X equals something. But in programming, you need a keyword out there. Although var will work, I want you to move towards using the let statement. That's more updated JavaScript. This is the old way of JavaScript. Oops. Okay, so you need let. So first is declare. You need to say that variables exist. Then the second step, initialize. Initial meaning beginning or start. You need to tell the computer the initial value. Where does your value start? So in this case, we declared it. The computer knows it exists. And in the first case, they've been initialized. So its starting value for x is 300, and then the starting value for y is 200. Modifying is the part you'll be playing with a lot, and it looks weird because in algebra class you'll say like, wait, x cancels out and 0 equals 1, so that's false. I'm like, no, because the modify statement over here, this expression, x equals x plus 1, that's what does your updating step. Okay, and we're going to see this at play. If statements we'll cover later. This is how we conditionally run things. Like, for example, in my code in the assignment prompt, these circles start on the right, end on the left, and when the biggest circle gets someone off the page, notice it resets, right? That's the behavior that we're going to move towards. For now, your drawings just using variables may repeat and do something, but you want it to stop and or after a certain point, like change color. That's what we're going to equip you with. Okay, and what else I have to talk about? If you want something more self-directed, you're going to go to code.org. 5, 7, and 8 count as or not really 8, number 9. Okay, 5, 7, and 9 are the lessons that will get you like super prepared for the work that we do. And Game Lab is still a valid way to code up these things. You don't have to use CodePen. So to frame this assignment, right? Have you made flipbooks before? Yes. This is what I want you to carry. There's a flipbook analogy, and for the first part of class, there is, if you remember this, okay, it will help guide you in colors, right? The person that drew this, they have a paintbrush, right? That's why you have stroke. Strokes of the brush, stroke weight is how hard you press on your brush. If you press more with a paintbrush, your lines become thicker. Versus if you just lightly press on it, then the stroke is much thinner. And then your typical drawing stuff. Yes, Liam?
I sent it, but I don't know if it's the right one.
Oh gosh, risky click. So keep this in mind. You don't have to make a grumpy cloud, but take a look. Aww. Yeah, take that. Ta-da, right? Very simple. Okay, you don't have to code this all up, but the idea behind the flipbook, right, is each frame to frame, you notice a tiny bit of detail changes, correct? Like in this case, the cloud is getting more angry and somewhat constipated looking, right? So then, you know, the eyebrows, they get tilted a bit more, right? And then suddenly, after a certain point, you know, oh, that's the end, right? The girl, I should have been watching the girl. I thought I was looking at the cloud. But then the rainbows, they like extend, 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 extend. We're going to make our code do that, okay? And this analogy applies for Game Lab. You didn't know it at first in, what is it? Yeah, let's demo in Game Lab still. And then we'll do the same in CodePen, and I'll move in between the two. Today's demo, we're just going to stick in Game Lab. So in Game Lab, you had something called a draw loop, right? It says draw in the very beginning. What that line of code in that function, what it does is it actually repeats a bunch of code. And your animal assignments and your national flag and your Olympic rings was actually getting drawn over and over again on top of one another. Because there was no change, you just saw the same image all the time. And by using a variable, let's like make one Olympic ring like move from side to side as just our first example of a simple animation. Here it is. So last semester I made an eye of Sauron. It looks like this. Do you see the Sauron? No? Okay, so it's just a bunch of circles using different weights. You should be familiar with a lot of that code. Remixing, it makes a copy of things. So this is now a simple animation of Olympic rings, right? So we made one red circle, right? So we go back to blocks. My code looks like this. And let's see if we can get this inner circle right here, okay? This ellipse that's taller than it is wide, which corresponds to this ellipse. Where is it? 200, 100 circle, 50. Yeah. So this middle one right here, right? So if I change the RGB value, right, all red, green, and blue, now it's all yellow. All subsequent eyes are also yellow because there isn't another stroke block. So, but yellow is hard to see. I have correctly identified that as my ring. Okay. Oh no, I need a number. Okay, 0. And now, in Game Lab, you will go to the purple blocks, okay? These are the ones that will help you out. At the very beginning, notice this one, these two blocks, right? This uses that declare keyword, right? That's the vocabulary word. It says it exists. This one's assign, and at first it just means initialize, right? The first time you use it. So we're going to drag one of those up, x, okay? Then down here, x is going to equal something. X is going to start maybe here as 200, okay? And to use this block, we can now replace like this one with x. And your code visually looks the same. Numbers, these letters take the place of this value 200. And notice if I change this to, let's say, 300, wherever it sees x, it also changes. So now the I has moved over here. And if I use it down here, variables are nice. Instead of typing numbers, you can now use letters and or words as shortcuts. Notice everything moved off to the side. And here comes the interesting part. After we draw it, and you can play around with the location, we add in that update step, x equals x plus 1. You type that in, it gives you that block. Let's see what happens, okay? Watch carefully. Reset run. Ooh. Okay. Yes, it fills the screen. You're getting closer to an animation, right? Yes, we're mesmerized. Okay, let's see it again. Okay, watch carefully. Okay, but a bit of strangeness occurs, correct? Because you would think that, wait a second, Mr. Chan, would not this gray circle get covered? What's going on there? And then you got to look at the code again. Everything in this gets repeated and drawn, right? Again and again. So as the red is being drawn, the circle is being drawn in the same exact spot, and now we kind of make it obvious that this is occurring. Yes? And that's why you see it on top, and then the outer eye and the inner iris is moving along the side. Maybe you don't like that, right? You want to see the rings individually move. By all means, change the spacing a bit. Notice you can add, like, maybe you can do plus 10 pixels. Maybe we'll change this to be like 100 so we see more of these rings move across the screen. And then, whoop, right? That's neat. Now we see a big red screen. You will drag background to be at the very front. This is what clears the slate. And now you see, right, no trails, and you see, the eye move from left to right. Okay. As you flip to a new page, it's a blank page, and that's what background does for you. As you draw more and more shapes, you get things that look like this. So far, so good? I'm going to pause there because that was a lot of new information. You should try these out. If not, look at the code.org lessons, and I'll share this code with you and post this screencast up on Google Classroom. That's the lecture of Computer Programming A. We've just introduced variables. I hope this helps you with your animation assignments.